TERAT workshop for outreach and engagement. My name is Tom Breitenbach, and I'm here with Rebecca Royce, and we are here as your presenters today. We are delighted to see all of you here today and to be partnering with you. Please, next slide, please. Thank you. So please mute yourself. You are welcome to unmute yourself if you have a question, but please remember to mute yourself afterward. This meeting is being recorded, so you can review it again later or share it. For the sake of time, we will not be doing introductions, but we appreciate everyone being here today. You are asked, you can ask questions during the workshop. You can also use the chat box, and it will also be available after for questions. Next slide, please. Today we'll be discussing the TRAP and TRIP programs, doing an overview and outreach services, and providing an overview of billing. Next slide, please.
Tom, would you like to introduce yourself and me?
Oh, yes, I did.
Want to know who we are?
I did in the beginning, Rebecca.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear it. I'm focusing
sorry.
on other things.
For those who might not have heard it, maybe it was blanked out. Well, my name is Tom Breitenbach, and this is Rebecca Royce, and we're your presenters for today. We work as the county, and we're overseeing the TERAT programs. So, program overview. So we are going to start with a program overview of TERA and TRAP, which we will be providing millions of dollars in rental assistance in response to COVID-19. We hope to help as many people as possible catch up on rent, and in doing so, we want to make sure that we provide equitable services. Similar to ERAP, we want to work with a buy-in for agencies and numerous other providers to get the rent out to those who need it. To be eligible for the program, a household can make no more than 50% of the area median income for Clark County. There is a slide later in this presentation that shows the 50% AMI amounts. They will be required to provide some type of documentation. However, there is flexibility around this for those who cannot get it. Also, households would have had to experience financial hardship due to COVID. The financial hardship can be indirect or directly related to COVID. I'll give an example, like if somebody was to lose their job, but it wasn't due to COVID, yet is struggling to find a job due to COVID, that might be an indirect reason why. So, again, documentation is required and will most likely be in the form of a self-declaration for this requirement, unless they have verification of their unemployment benefits. The third eligibility requirement is to be at risk of homelessness, and this verification is required for this too, which can come from the landlord. Next slide, please. Households can only receive 12 months worth of rent and utility assistance, and we can only pay as far back as March 13th, 2020. We may be able to include 3 months of future rent depending on how much arrears they have owed, because we can only pay 12 months total. Those who received assistance with ERAP can still receive assistance through this program, just not for the same months that ERAP paid. And they can only access this funding one time. For utility assistance, applicants, hold on a second. I apologize. For utility assistance, applicants will be referred to Clark County Utilities and will only receive assistance with past due electrical bills. For other types of utilities, as long as they are included in the lease, they will be paid as part of rent. Next slide, please. The strategy that we are taking to address inequity is to work with buy-in for agencies for outreach and engagement. We have some performance measures here that, if met, will help demonstrate our efforts to outreach and provide services to those who need it. These goals listed here are proportionate to the population needs of the county to the best of our knowledge. Next slide, please. Program access. How to access the program. The general population will access the program through the housing hotline or an online portal. However, there are other access points. For landlords, access will be a different online portal. For BIPOC communities, access will be through Bridgeview. For refugees and immigrants, access will be through Partners in Careers. And for veterans, access will be through the Veterans Assistance Center. The program will be open for people to apply March 30th, tomorrow. Services cannot be provided past December 31st. However, we anticipate closing the waitlist long before that due to the high need. Next slide, please.
One thing that I added to the slide that Tom didn't notice that I forgot to tell him about on me is that we've added an option for people that do not have phone or internet access so that they can walk up to share their Fromhold Center on Andreessen, and share will be available between 10 and 12 Monday through Friday, that they can pick up an application. Share can help them fill everything out and help them with that internet or with that application process. Again, this is focused for people that do not have phone or internet options to be able to access the program.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. I did miss that. I appreciate it.
Excuse me, Tom and Rebecca, just one quick question.
Sure.
I might have missed this, but will this slide and information be available after?
Yes, it is being recorded, so
Thank
you'll
you.
be able to review it afterwards. So here's a copy of the flyer, which has a brief explanation of eligibility, including the 50% AMI chart that I spoke of earlier. There's a phone number here and a web link for the general public to access the program, and a link here for the landlord. Next slide, please. On the second page is a reference to the type of documentation that is needed, and contact information for other access points, such as the Veterans Assistance Center, PIC for refugees and immigrants, and Bridgeview for BIPOC communities. Any questions on this so far? Next slide, please.
We will make sure that we provide this to you in multiple languages: English, Spanish, Russian, Chuukese. I think there's other languages also that they're getting translated into. If there's a specific language you're needing, let us know and we'll make sure that we get that for you.
So here are some items that we have committed to doing at the county. So as Rebecca had mentioned, we will be providing a flyer in English, Spanish, Russian, and Chuukese. We'll be providing regular communication on the program progress, blank invoice forms, payment request forms, technical assistance, and we'll be reviewing billing in a timely manner. Any questions? Okay, with that, I will turn it over to Rebecca to speak about outreach services.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.
So for many of you that worked with us on the ERAP program, there is a similar requirement that we have to put on any outreach that we're doing that says that this project was supported by Treasury. So this is the exact language. In your contract, it'll tell you which different types of outreach will require this language. Social media doesn't. Obviously, there's a character limit. So we've gotten a waiver on that. You don't have to put it there. But if you are doing a presentation with a PowerPoint, you can put it at the very end in small print. That's fine. It just has to be there. It has to be seen somewhere. And so we do have to put this in all of the, including radio advertisements that we do. It's that, disclaimer at the very end where he talks really fast and really low. This project was submitted by a grant, blah, 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 blah. So we just have to show that it's there. So this is one of those requirements. For social media posts, we know there are many, many different types of platforms that can be used. The most common are Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but we'll work with you on any type of platform that you are used to using to reach the populations that we want to make sure this information gets out to. social media posts need to include, the name of the program and how they access it. And you can call it the Treasury Run Assistance or, things like that. But as long as the name is there and how they get there. And if you attach the flyer, that obviously has all the information on it. So it'd be easy, and that meets the requirements for the post. You can be reimbursed for each post on each platform every day if you want to do that. If you have multiple Facebook groups that you're working with, each one of them is considered its own social media post because you're outreaching to specific populations, specific people that are going, obtaining information through that group. And then documentation is always required when we're doing our invoicing, and we try to be as flexible as possible in what that looks like. But the best thing is if you can take a snapshot of the post with a date is the best. But I know a lot of times, like Twitter, it just says posted 1 hour ago. So when you put it in a separate document, just type in or write down what date it is that you sent it. And we'll work with you on, just making sure that we get that information. But the most important piece is seeing an actual copy of the post that was done so that we can reimburse you for that. When doing email distributions, the email must include the flyer, the program name, and it needs to be sent to at least 20 recipients. There's no maximum number that email can go to, but it does need to go to at least 20 people. You can blind copy the recipients, and then when you are submitting your documentation, you can write down how many recipients are in that distribution. So if it's 24, 150, just write it on there. That's you certifying that you're sending it to that number of recipients. You can send emails as often as weekly, although I don't know if you want to send them that often because that can be a little overwhelming for the recipients. But that's for you guys to kind of determine what works best for your program. Again, this one does include the publicity requirement, so make sure at the bottom of the email in small print you put in there that little disclaimer. And again, we'll work with you on what that reimbursement looks like or what that documentation for your invoice looks like. When it comes to doing community or membership presentations, the presentation needs to include the program name and how to access the program. It's the whole reason that you're doing the presentation. You can do the presentation in virtual format, which is most likely these days, or you can do it in person if they're starting to do some in-person meetings. You're not required to put slides together. You can do just an oral presentation. That is totally fine. If you're doing an in-person meeting, and if it's appropriate, then you would be responsible for printing out the flyer and providing it to the attendees. We also want to make sure that we're not the same agencies aren't providing the presentation to the same groups. So we ask that you do just a little bit of due diligence with the host of that meeting, making sure that there's not another agency that's coming in to do the same presentation. And then documentation for that would be a copy of the agenda, if there is one that shows that you're on there, or maybe there's some minutes that they write up afterwards. A lot of meetings are really informal, especially when it's in a virtual format, and we understand that. So getting an email from the host of that meeting saying that, Rebecca Royce came on, March 29th and did a presentation for our, support group. And that's fine. We'll take that as documentation that it happened. We have a question in the chat about being reimbursed for social media posts. So we will have contracts going out with each of the buy and for organizations that we're working with. And then it will have in there the reimbursement information about each of the different ways to do outreach, including social media posts. And social media posts is one of the most common ways of doing outreach for the program. And another question is, what is the minimum number of participants for the community presentation? Is it only for Clark? Yes, so we are only working within Clark County. So that's where our focus is. The information to get into the program is specifically to Clark County, and we can only serve households within Clark County. There is no minimum participants with a membership presentation. It's just the fact that you're doing that in front of a group and providing that information. So we don't require or request information about how many people participated. Another form of doing outreach is our website announcements, and this is kind of a broad name, but more specific to what is included in this type of outreach. Again, kind of sounding, repeating myself, we need to include the program name and how to access the program. We do recommend that you include the flyer, but that's not a requirement for this. This website announcements is more than just posting the flyer to your website. This involves additional work that needs to be done. For example, if you're putting video logs together, so Therese with the Washington Advocates for Deaf and Hard of Hearing does interprets it into small videos and then posts those. So there's extra work that goes. We're working with specific agencies that are translating the flyers into different languages and then posting them on their website. So that there's that additional step that's included in doing the work. We have one agency that is creating small video logs to help explain how to fill out the application and what documentation is needed. And they're doing that in specific languages and stuff. Those are the types of things that the website announcements would fall under and be reimbursed for. Again, we do need to have that publicity statement in there somewhere, small print and down at the bottom. It can be on the website. It doesn't have to be in the video log itself if that's the mode that you're using, but just on the website in small print. And then to document the information on the website, we can do that in a myriad of ways. One of the most common is a screenshot of the website with the link showing or typed in next to it. And in some websites, you can actually see the little video clip on pause, and we can see that. And so those are things that you could just take a screenshot and submit that with your billing. And again, we'll work with you on making sure that we get the proper documentation. Another form of doing outreach, this one's new. We didn't do this one during ERAP, but it was suggested by one of our partners, and that's through phone and text communications. If you remember with ERAP, we had you actually doing, the referrals, right? You were a referral partner, you were helping the household fill out the application and submitting it to your direct contact housing provider. Since we're doing this a little bit different this time, we wanted to open up the different ways of doing outreach. And we know that your agencies have your households calling because you're a trusted partner with them. And so if you are reaching out by phone or text communication, then that is something that we can reimburse for. All the communications, again, need to include the program name and how to access the program. So if you do a text, just make sure you have that in the text message. If you're doing it by phone, make sure that you are saying what it is. We do allow voicemails as long as you are providing all of that information. If you're just calling up and saying, hey, Tom, I know about a new rent assistance program, give me a call, that would not qualify as doing outreach for the program. But if you're saying, hey, Tom, there's this new Treasury rent assistance program, I think you would qualify for it. Your family needs to earn under 50% of the area median income, and here's how you apply. Give so-and-so a call. That would qualify as providing enough information to then put that down as one of your outreach phone calls. One of the things with text messages is it's you're documenting the conversation that you're having. So it's not each time you text with that household, it's that conversation. So if you're texting back and forth, if you introduce the program to a household and they text you back with like a clarifying question or something that's about accessing it, and you kind of go back and forth a little bit, that's one conversation. If they come back later and say, hey, I still haven't heard anything, or if they've got additional questions kind of later that get a little bit more into detail, that would be considered a separate conversation, and you can be reimbursed for that separately. Documentation for this is going to be a call log. And on that log, you'll want to put the date. We'll need the date. And then you can either put the initials of the person or their phone number. We'll leave that up to you on the best way of doing that. We don't want a whole lot of personally identifying information on that backup. It's more just to show that you have made a contact with a household when it happened. And then we can kind of go back and see if there's been a lot of duplication, we can get in contact with you and learn a little bit more about why that was happening. Okay, that's all that we have about the actual outreach services. We know we've worked with a couple of agencies. We have one agency on the training today that's doing radio advertisements. That's pretty specific, so I didn't go into too many details on that one. But are there any questions about these types of outreach services and what is included? And we had one question in the chat asking that the organizations that the county contracted with will be doing the social media and email blasts. Yes, so we are working with several different organizations. Diana, I'm not sure if you're involved with one of those agencies, and that's why you're on the call today.
So can you, yeah, hi, Rebecca, thank you for that. Can you state which organizations those are?
We are working with the Noble Foundation, Washington Advocates for Deaf and Hard of Hearing, Lutheran Community Services Northwest, Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber, LULAC. Tom, help me out. I think there's somebody else and I'm missing them.
I did it again. I was talking without being.
I do that all the time.
2 seconds here. I was just going to pull it up just to make sure.
PEACE, which is Parents Empowerment, and I never pay attention to the acronym. I'm so sorry. It's PEACE.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
So we have Noble, PEACE, COPA.
Oh, COFA, yeah.
Lutheran Community Services, Hispanic Chamber, LULAC. We have Washington Advocates for Deaf and Hard of Hearing, CBEC, LCRG.
So we're not actually working directly with the Latino Community Resource Group.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We're going back and forth. We hadn't received enough information before getting going with the program, unfortunately. We hope to work with them again in the future. I know Elizabeth has just been swamped with all of the work.
I think so I think that's everyone.
Yeah.
That's quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Fantastic, thank you.
And Diana, we are always looking to find additional partners that are buy-in for organizations, buy-in for, meaning,
yeah, I'm curious about that, Rebecca, because my organization did not receive that notification. And many of you probably know that we, along with our partners with LULAC and LCRG and the MAACP over the past year, created the COVID-19 Rapid Response campaign on social media that has been very, how can I say this? Very important to the community. And so I'm just kind of curious as to why we did not receive that invitation to participate.
It was not done on purpose. We did reach out to the NAACP and to Karen's group.
Odyssey.
Thank you so much. And, you know, we didn't get any responses. I know we're working with Bridgeview, and with Bridget working with Bridgeview, I know there's a direct, relationship going on, getting referrals in through Bridgeview and the people, the communities that they work with the NAACP. But if you wouldn't mind putting your email address in the chat, or you can send me an email, I will make sure that you get on our distribution list. And I apologize. It was definitely just an oversight, not anything. There was no reasoning for not including your organization.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely. And we are trying to grow the buy-in-for programs that we work with, not only to help with the outreach and making sure that we get to all of the different communities that we have here in Clark County, but we also want to help these agencies, especially the smaller agencies, grow as individual smaller agencies. So to be a buy-in-for organization, you have to be by and for, so the specific community that you're working with, but then also leadership needs to represent that community. And you need to be a nonprofit organization, and then beyond that's pretty much the requirements to do the buy and for work. Any other questions before I move on to the next section? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty fun of billing. So many of you did this last time with the ERAP program, and it's very similar, but there is a little bit of a change. So your invoice components are going to include that claim voucher, the payment request form, a general ledger or invoice of some sort, and then the backup documentation. And then the county has 30 days from that receipt to reimburse you, but we do try to prioritize the invoices for this program to be reimbursed. So hopefully you'll see it faster. And then if you have not signed up for the electronic funds transfers, we highly recommend doing that so that you get your reimbursement faster. So this is what our claim voucher looks like. Make sure we will send you multiple copies. They're numbered individually. So there's an invoice number up here, a CV number, claim voucher number. And so each billing has to have a different number so that it can go into our accounting system. So don't use the same form. Make sure you update it. Make sure you include your contract number, which you will have, and I'll show you where else you can find it if you don't have your contract handy. What billing period this is for. Typically, this is going to say March 2021, April 2021. This section is not fillable at this time. So we want to make sure that we do have a date. So when you are certifying it, you want to make sure you include the date here. The remit to information is your organization and address. And then a very brief description of services. And this can be so simple as outreach services for March. It doesn't have to go into detail. And then how much you're asking for in reimbursement. And the payment request form is going to help you figure that out. So I recommend filling the payment request form out first and then doing the voucher. And then you'll make sure you sign this document and date it. Everything below here is used internally for county finance staff. So you don't need to worry about anything that's down here. The payment request form is going to be provided by us. We'll send you an email. So we'll send you multiple copies of the claim voucher, and then we'll also send you your payment request form. This time, it's an Excel document, and it's formulated to keep track of overall spending for you. You'll complete the current month row, and I'm going to actually bring up the payment request form so you can see how it works. The amount that you are asking for on the payment request form and the claim voucher must match your invoice or general ledger. It's just so we know all of the things that are happening. And then you don't need to have a formal signature on the payment request form, but we do ask for the name and the contact information for the person that's filling it out in case we have any questions. If your agency does not have access to using Excel, let me know. I can create the form as, I can create this document as a PDF form. It's not going to do the calculations for us. So you would manually calculate, but we can make that available as an alternate way for you to be able to provide us the payment request form. So this is what the payment request form looks like overall. I'm going to actually bring it up in the Excel. So here it is in Excel. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, see how this works. Here we go. So at the top left corner, this is going to be static information. You'll enter it once, or we'll probably already have entered it for you, and it just stays there. It includes your agency name, the contract number. So this is what you'll want to use on your claim vouchers, is whatever this contract number is. And then it just says outreach and engagement. It's the type of program that we're doing. You don't need to worry about these over here, even if they're blank. This is for our office use, so that we know where we're entering it in our fiscal software. And then you're receiving Treasury Rent Assistance Program dollars from Commerce or through Commerce. So it's just so we know where the funding source is coming from. Each of your payment request forms will be customized for your program, for the different types of outreach that you're doing. This is the most common ones that are happening. And so I just set this up as a sample so that we could kind of walk through filling one out. Here is what your contract is going to start with. It's going to show, oh, we have social media posts, and we've talked about doing 40 of them, which is a total of $2,000 for that outreach and engagement service. We have email distributions. We talked about 20 of them. We talked about doing 2 website announcements and 5 community presentations. If at any time you realize we're not doing as many email distributions, but we want to do more social media posts, we can make that happen. And what you would do is you would put the month. So let's say you decided in May that you wanted to update what you were doing. You can enter the CV number on the one that you're doing it on. So let's say that CV number is 1983. And then you can make your changes. So you've decided that you want to do more social media. So let's say you're going to do 5 more social media posts, and you can either put a formula in here, or you can just enter the amount of what that would be. Social media posts are reimbursed at $50 each. You'll see that in your contract. And then we would want to make this even out. So we want to take away the number of email distributions that would match to get to the same amount, which would be times 125, because we're doing $125 reimbursement. So this way we have an even state at the budget balance remaining. So that's the goal, is just to make sure that the overall at the end, it matches. And so once we see this in here, the date, that's going to trigger us to say, oh, there's a conversation to have, just to make sure that the numbers match up. We know that they're not all going to match up nice and pretty, because not all of these are the exact same amounts. And so we can work with you on what ways to do that. There's also no requirement that says you have to spend every dollar in the contract. Obviously, we want you to. We want you to do all of the outreach services that you had estimated that you were going to be able to do. But if we don't spend out all the dollars in the contract, it's not going to be negative against your agency. We know that we're estimating this for a program that has a lot of variables, the biggest being how long is the wait list going to be open. So when you submit your invoices, let's say you go ahead and send social media posts today, you want to get going, get the information out, you're going to enter your CV number in this one, and in our PowerPoint, our CV number was 587. So you would enter 587. And let's say you did 5 social media posts today. You've got them out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and some other platform. So you'd put that there. This is automatically going to calculate for you, which is really nice. and your total invoice is this dollar amount right here, $250. And then it's going to do a subtracting for you. It's going to keep your balance down here so you know how much you have left to work with. Then you're going to go ahead and just type in your name of the person that is filling it out and how to reach me or how to reach you. So you put that in there. Save this as your March in payment request form somewhere in your system, and then you can email that with your invoice packet. Let's see. Are there any questions specific to the billing itself? This is probably the hardest part of the entire program. And so when you submit the information to either Tom or myself, we're going to review it and then we'll provide you any feedback on, something that we need additional information, or if we, if there's anything else that we need, or if we have any questions to make sure that we understand what is being included with that. So please don't be shy about sending us questions about your billing or just submitting it and letting us work with you back and forth on that. You're a quiet group this morning.
You did a really good job of explaining it. I think that's what it was, Rebecca.
I hope. So now we just want to open it up to any questions that you guys might have about any part of the training today or the program that is being offered.
Rebecca, this is Diana. So in terms of the social media post, is the county looking for, let's say my organization is interested in pushing out some social media posts. Is the county looking for just like reposting the information or creating a post in the target language that is culturally relevant to the community?
So in most cases, it's going to be creating that post, but you could just repost that one a few days later, and that's fine. It's being reposted again. You're getting the information out there again.
Okay, yeah, our organization spends time researching what is the most culturally, linguistically appropriate and relevant way to send out messaging. So we would, examine the content that the county has, and then making sure that it is relevant in the language and to specifically our Latinx community. And like I mentioned earlier, we collaborated with LULAC and LCRG, the NAACP, to create the COVID-19 rapid response campaign messaging that now has moved into vaccination efforts. So we're very familiar with this body of work and super excited to be part of this work. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's exactly why, that in just a nutshell right there, why we want to work with specific agencies, because we know in the English language, things come across one way, but when you translate it, you can't just do a direct translation because the context isn't there. And that's part of the reason why some of our agencies are doing those video logs, right? They're not only translating it and including the context so that it comes across correctly, but then going that extra step to really have that conversation in a video log format of providing that information. And we want to, we are always looking for new and better and culturally relevant, specific ways of doing outreach. So yes, social media is one of the most common ways, and email blasts are very common. But are there other ways? And doing these video logs, we did some last time. It was Teresa. I'm going to give her the credit for this because she talked about it, doing that so that she could do interpretation, put it in sign language for people that she works with, so they have the specific information that they need. And from that, we're now working with COFA to do it in Chuukese and Marshallese and Cochrane. And so, expanding that to be able to answer the most common questions that people are going to have when they're trying to access this program. It is very important to us not because it's a contract requirement, but it's important because we have been looking at equity for the last few years and making sure that we do what specific, these different types of specific outreach so that we can engage households that typically don't want to enter the system to make sure that they're getting assistance, because we're, underrepresented in our system, and we want to make change. We want that to be different.
Yeah, that's spot on. Like I just mentioned, we've been doing this work now for a year under our belt, and our latest project was our video influencer project, where we highlighted folks from the community about talking about the vaccine. The latest video that was posted, I think over the weekend or on Friday, was one of our own um, parent in the community. He was demonstrating how easy and the reason why he was taking the vaccine. And so I threw in the chat box a link to our Facebook page, which is one of our platforms, and how we're working with community. And we recently added TikTok into our social media portfolio, along with LinkedIn as well. And so like I said, we've been doing this work now for a year, and our social media platforms, audience and reach has grown exponentially. And our following is just been incredible, and response. I think our response in terms of positivity has been, I would say, about 97% overall. There's that small 3-4% of the population that, we all have our critics out there. So thank you again for sharing the opportunity.
I appreciate it, Diana. And I was writing down your email so I didn't lose it in the chat when the video is over. So I was listening and I was writing that down. And then I'll make sure that you're on our distribution list for future opportunities, because yes, we want to make sure that we have everybody involved, as many organizations as possible.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions about this program? This one's more in depth than the ERAP program, especially with documentation requirements. The ERAP program was fantastic as far as, calling up and having all the information and processing everybody right away. This one is going to take more documentation to be able to actually provide the services. So we just want to make sure that you guys have an understanding, so that when you're doing your outreach out into the community, that you have a basic understanding and providing information out to the households that are needing assistance. I'm not seeing anything pop up in the chat, and I'm not hearing anybody. So I'm not going to hold you hostage. So if you don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and end the training. We'll stay on for a little bit. So if you do have questions, we can answer those. And then once this is recording is, we'll put it into a YouTube format. We'll send it out to the group along with the PowerPoint so that you have all of that information available to you. The information with the flyer in English will be out today, so you should be seeing that. And then we are getting the translations done, so it might take a couple of days. One thing to know is we feel pretty strongly that the wait lists are going to close very quickly. We don't know how long it's going to take for the wait lists to close. And so it's a guessing game at this time. We're going to, do everything we can to keep you guys up to date on the information that we know that's coming out. When I send out the email today with the PowerPoint and the recording, if your other staff members are receiving it, but you are not, and you want to be on that email, please just send me an email back and I'll make sure that I have you on my distribution list, so that you specifically get that information. All right. Well, thank you so much for attending. I hope this was informational for you. If you have any questions, either Tom or myself will be your program contact. You'll be receiving in your contracts within, if you haven't received them already, within the next couple of days. The face sheet, that front page, will show who your program contact is so that you can contact us directly. And we're happy to help. Just let us know what we can do. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a good day.